masters, masters, masters of change.
Welcome to Masters of Change. My name is Kim Cunio, and I'm the head of music at the Australian National University. And I'm here in a series of discussions with my good friend, Charlie Hogg. And Charlie is the director of the Brahma Kumaris here in Australia. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Kim. Good to be here.
Well, Charlie, today we're at the start of a series of episodes that personally I'm really excited about because, sometimes we talk about the day-to-day things of life, but sometimes it's important to talk about the really big things of life, the things that sort of stop us in our tracks. And so we're starting a series on the law of karma. And so I wanted to start by asking you, what does even the word karma bring to you?
As we know, Kim, it literally is translated as action. And in a way, I see this beautiful relationship of the soul and action, that I am a soul, but I have this wonderful instrument, my body, and I perform actions through this body. And in a sense, the intent or the motive of the action sort of dictates my story, my life in a way. With the quality of actions I perform, I reap the fruit of those actions. So karma really, in one sense, means to me, how I appear in the world around me. The quality of my thinking and actions appears in the world around me, and I reap the fruit of that.
This is really fascinating to me, Charlie. Now, one thing that it's often described as is a universal law. So could I ask you, what does that mean to you? This notion of a universal law, is it something that we can't escape?
Yes, I think it is actually, Kim. And one of the things which is quite fascinating about the law of karma is that it's a law, one of perhaps the few things that science and religion seem to come together on. There's the law in science for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And we also know that, as you sow, so you reap. So you actually reap the fruits of your actions. And I think it just gives us an incredible awareness in life. Often we just do something, we just say something, do something, and then wonder why later on, forms of unhappiness and sorrow come back to me. Because actually, underneath it all, I'm creating my destiny.
Charlie, one thing that I've always thought about, because karma is a big thing in all of our lives, and even as a child I was thinking about karma, and I always used to wonder, how on earth is the record kept of our actions? So I wanted to ask you, in your understanding, we can't really shield our actions. Everything is seen on some level. Could you tell us about that process?
Yeah, it's probably a bit like what they say today, Kim, that once you sort of put something out on social media, it's there forever. And that's why you have to be careful. It's the same thing that the soul is a fascinating thing, because we just use this word soul, and we've been describing it in our lovely conversations as being a point of consciousness residing in the front of the brain. But actually, the soul is an overname for three aspects of consciousness. The mind, which receives the information from the senses, the intellect assessing the information, and then we do the action, we perform the karma, and every single action is recorded in my database, in my subconscious. So the amazing thing is that you and I are sitting here having a sort of a lounge room chat with each other, as we've been doing a lot recently. But you are carrying your entire record of your past actions in this life and your past lives, and so am I. It's recorded in my subconscious. And so that's why, ultimately, to do action is a form of self-respect in a way. Yeah, to do good action is a form of respecting myself. To do a bad action is a form of disrespecting myself.
And Charlie, you've really said something important to me, excuse me, which is that even if I cannot remember all of my actions, on some level they are remembered. because there's a difference between our conscious memory, which is fallible, and the fact that on the deepest level as a soul, we are witness to every single action we create.
Absolutely, Kim. And that's the incredible thing, because our subconscious is a powerful force, isn't it? Because it's sometimes, you're in a situation and this powerful feeling in you tells you to not say anything, or to say something, or to react or not react according to your programming of the past. And that's why sometimes I sort of think, until I get truth in my intellect, I'm dancing to the tune of my past actions. I'm like a puppet. So I want a better life, but I've created habits of anger, habits of fear, habits of resentment, habits of this, habits of that. And I'm dancing to the tune of that habit, all those habits. Yet I keep saying, I want a better life, I want a better life. But until I change my habitual programming, which I've created, and that's the incredible thing of the law of karma, that actually, I've created who I am now. I am responsible for the person who is sitting here in this moment.
Charlie, that's such a profound teaching. And I think it relates to one image that I really love about karma, which is this notion of the wheel. Like the wheel, basically, as you say, what goes around comes around. So we're constantly receiving things from the wheel of destiny. But if we're not careful, we forget that we've created everything that's on the wheel. And we go, why have I got that experience?
Yeah.
Why should I, sweet me, deal with this?
Yeah.
Little realizing that once we've created it, we have to reap it. We are essentially the planters of our own destiny. That's what you're saying to us.
Absolutely, Kim. And that's a really interesting thing how you've said it, because some people wonder why others around them always seem to have enough wealth to do whatever they want, or they wonder why people always like my best friend. They don't like me as much. We question life, and it's almost like it's unfair. But when you understand the law of karma, nothing is really unfair. It is what it is. It's the ultimate result of actions of the past. And that's why really spirituality, one, it teaches me to meditate, but when you meditate, you have the power to sort of change your karmic destiny, begin to shift it from perhaps a habitual negative one, that I'm just sort of bouncing off my negative. I start to rebuild it into more of a positive mode. So I can actually change my destiny.
Charlie, this is a very revolutionary concept. I just want to hold that for a little while, because there's been a burning question I wanted to ask you since we've started talking today, which is because, there's a lot of religions in the world. Even in India, we have Hinduism as, the majority religion. Then there's, millions, hundreds of millions of people who follow Islam. And then there's many smaller religions in India. And then if we look at the world, there's so many religions. And it doesn't seem on the surface that all these religions follow the law of karma. So I want to ask you, how does that apply to me if I've come from a birth in another religion?
Kim, recently I was reading that there's actually 4,500 practiced religions in our world. Wow. Isn't that remarkable? And when you really look at most of them, in Hinduism and Buddhism, it's very overt. The law of karma is a whole philosophy that is taught. In other religions, like Christianity, it's not really taught as the law of karma, but the whole idea of as you sow, so you reap, or that if you sow your actions on hard ground, you sow the seeds, it's not going to grow much, but if you sow the seeds on good ground, in other words, it comes out of good consciousness, you're creating your destiny and you're creating your future. And I don't know, Kim, but sometimes my experience as I've travelled is that a lot of people in the Western world tend to think that the law of karma is about negative stuff. John Lennon's song, Instant Karma, that you get the instant fruit. And I've even found in the Eastern world, even in Hindu and Buddhist countries, it's sort of fatalistic. If you're born poor and you don't have this and you don't have a chance for education, that's your lot, accept it. But actually what we're learning is you can change the course of your karma. You can actually, through your spiritual power, actually start to do a different quality of action and start to reap a different quality of life. And in a sense, that's at the heart of spirituality. Change the seeds, the thoughts, and those seeds are the seeds of elevated actions.
Charlie, this is another basic question, but I've often heard especially when travelling to our headquarters in Mount Abu, where there's so many deep, profound teachers, of course, and I often hear the phrase, settling the accounts of karma, when I'm in Mount Abu. I find this a very inspiring phrase. Could I ask you what it means?
What it really means, Kim, is that we are all eternal souls. The soul performs actions through the body. When the soul forgets itself and starts to think, identify, be very deeply attached to being a temporary body, the actions spring out of perhaps a more gross state of consciousness. So you're performing an action, but it's coloured by anger, ego, greed, lust or attachment, fear, whatever. So what that means is that we start to build, perhaps you could say, habitual patterns of actions with those vices, and you develop this karmic account. It's almost, probably what you could call it is the unfinished business, your own unfinished business. Sometimes I think, people often think their life's okay, but they wake up in the morning and they feel flat. They feel empty. They feel depressed even. I often feel that's the sort of the weight of the unfinished karmic story. So really, what is spirituality? First, it's learning how to do a quality of action to create a positive future. Secondly, to settle through the meditation power the account I've accrued. So if I've got this much debt, the more I do good action and meditate, I lower my debt. And thirdly, I can create peace in the present. So I have new actions for the future, I settle the actions of the past, and I know how to create peace in my present. This is, once again, at the heart of spirituality.
And this is the radical thing, I think, about what you're saying, but radical, but also so simple. That is really, from this moment, we can intervene in our karmic accounts.
We can.
And really, what you're saying, Charlie, is through the practice of meditation that we will change our karmic accounts of the future.
Absolutely.
That we have the capability of releasing some of these karmic accounts through the union with the divine that meditation is.
Yeah.
This is it's almost too good to be true.
And Kim, that's why we design our life to wake up in the morning, remember God, and just you download that divine energy into your mind, and then it's got this elevated awareness or consciousness, and that becomes the seeds of my actions. So I step into the day and I start to perform this elevated karma. And so I am absolutely refocusing my destiny. I've decided, rather than being the cork on the ocean, life pulls me and pushes me according to my karmic story. I'm now deciding where I want to go. And if a karmic account does come up, I have a context to understand it. Rather than saying, it's not fair, this isn't right, this isn't good, I know it is the result of something from the past. And it's not that I'm a bad person. Some people I've heard say, when you talk about as you sow, so you reap, they say, I must have been a terrible person. No, not at all. We lost awareness when we became body conscious without realizing it. We've done actions. It's become natural to do actions coloured by ego and attachment. And that has created a negative karmic destiny. We've all done it. And so it's not that we're bad. We had a good intent, but we were ignorant of really who we were.
Charlie, this is bringing up something that could be quite confronting to some people, this notion of shared karmic destiny. That of course we have our individualized karmas. These are maybe a little bit easier to understand. We could be really simplistic. I'm angry today. I might well experience anger in the future to learn the lesson of dealing with anger. These sorts of things. But we see in the world, of course, even today, even more so than ever, we see such immense atrocities, don't we?
We do.
In the world, and we see innocent children murdered, for nothing. And to a lot of people, this is really hard to see. And the zenith of this is an argument that I've heard many times because I was born into the Jewish religion. What about the Holocaust?
Yes.
And all the Holocausts and all the thousands and the millions of people who died an unjust death. Could I ask you, this is a hard question, could I ask you for your spiritual understanding of the great suffering that happens in our world?
It is a hard question because actually the question isn't hard, but I need to be very, I suppose, spiritually aware to listen to the answer, because if you really go into the depth of the law of karma, it doesn't lie. There is no injustice. And that needs, rather than sometimes we react, but I think it just needs a deep awareness that all of us are souls. We've all been in past lives, and even as a little child with that little innocent face, I still carry my karmic story from the past. As I was saying, it's not that we're bad people, but under the influence of societies and cultures and conflicts between religions and cultures, things have happened in the past. And in a way, look at our world now. Look at the things going on. It's almost like this mass settlement of karma. Sometimes in the mind, sometimes in health, sometimes in relationships. There's different layers of karma. And so, it is a hard thing, but there's really ultimately no injustice, because it's like in a material way, throw a ball against the wall, it will come back with virtually equal force, as for every action, equal and opposite. So it's almost saying whatever I throw into life, my thoughts, words, actions, ultimately they come back to me, sometimes instantly, but mostly they come back, later in time. So I would say that to put a sort of a wider context to your question, Kim, that the Brahma Kumaris often talk about cyclic time. And there was a golden age and a silver age where really only good karma, elevated karma, pure karma, so to speak. But where old souls, and as we became more and more body conscious, we accrued quite a huge debt. Everyone was body conscious. And so that's why sometimes there is mass accounts born into a community, into a culture, into a religion. These things like tsunamis and that destroy a whole lot of people, whole communities, whole families together. And it needs depth to understand, and I really know that often when these things come up, it's a little bit uncomfortable, and I just feel I can really appreciate that, but I just really feel let it sort of soak in deeply and just reflect deeply.
Charlie, that's a beautiful answer to a difficult question. The thing I take from your answer is a lot of hope, and the reason why I say the word hope is that we're saying that nothing is immune. So we might say the great demagogues of the world, those who inflict great violence, they will be subject to the law of karma. So it's not like it's just us. So on one level you're saying, trust this world. If this really is a fundamental law of the universe, we have to abide by it. The more we fight it, the more difficulty we'll have in this life. Is that what you're really saying to us?
Absolutely, Kim. And I think, a wise person, if someone is really rude to me or does something bad to me, and I have that revenge habit, what am I doing? I'm increasing my karma. I had the chance not to react, so at least I've settled an account. But if I decide I'm going to hit back, I'm just actually perpetuating my story and my karmic unhappiness in that way. And that's why, a spiritual person will become a lot more aware of which actions create happiness and which actions are creating sorrow. And even when I started spiritually, I was amazed that a lot of subtle actions we take for granted are causing me a lot of pain and sorrow. And what's happening in the world today, Kim, is this sort of karmic cycle. I'm suffering today for my actions yesterday, but I'm doing the same actions today. So what will tomorrow be like? And you used the right word, I think. What we do spiritually, we're intervening in this karmic cycle. We're doing different actions, meaning the intent behind the action is not to pay someone back or anything like that. No, the intent now is to give happiness.
Yes, this is a beautiful thing, and I remember many years ago hearing the phrase, love dissolves karma.
Yeah.
Which is, and because it's this thing that you've already mentioned a couple of times in our conversation today, that our motivation is paramount, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we can perform a good action with a closed heart and we're still creating a negative karmic account. But at the same time, if our heart is open, we can move mountains, can't we?
We really can. And you know, Kim, just what you said, I can see a little old lady who needs help to go over the road. I can feel really annoyed because I'm late, and I feel, oh God, okay, or I can do it with love. So the action's the same. The lady gets across the road, but one can be with anger and frustration, and another can be with love. And so it's really the intent. Karma is about the intent. And that's why what I've learned, the more the intent is love, goodwill, respect, you're creating a beautiful future for yourself.
Charlie, that's a beautiful answer. It's been, I think, I'm so engaged from this conversation. I can't wait to continue them. And I'd say to all of you who are listening and viewing, please take the time to listen to this whole series, because this is something that we often don't discuss. It's almost too difficult. So it's an opportunity to really think about our own lives in the deepest sense. Now, to prepare us for all of that, it's that special time of our sessions, Charlie, where you bring us into the inner world.
Let us sit in a very relaxed way and observe my life. My life is full of responsibilities, relationships, so many things I do and experience. And I'm constantly performing actions as I do it. And when I really deeply begin my spiritual journey, I realize that each action is creating my destiny. It's like I'm creating my future in the present. And so when we sit to meditate, I'm remembering God. I remember God as light. I feel the love of God soothing me, caressing me, and healing me. And those feelings transform the motives of my actions. Maybe before my meditation I was a little bit angry, a little bit hurt. But once I meditate, I feel God's love healing me. I perform the action colored by that love, colored by that compassion, colored by that forgiveness. And that action makes me strong. That action gives me power. When something happens and I instantly react with emotion. And I say something or do something with the intent to hurt, to give sorrow. These actions make me weak. And so I begin to see that all my thoughts are the seeds of my actions. And these seeds of actions create my destiny and my future. So I begin to realize how important it is to maintain the highest consciousness, because then the quality of my actions will bring me happiness. And I begin to live according to the truth. Don't give sorrow and don't take sorrow. Om Shanti.
Dear friends, it seems so fitting that Charlie finished his meditation with really the great mantra of the Brahma Kumaris, Om Shanti. Because in the end, if we believe that we are creating our own destiny, and when we really examine ourselves in these bodies, in these lives, how can we not see ourselves as the people who are making this world and our world? And Charlie has said to us that we can intervene in this cycle of life from today and make a better life for ourselves and all those we care about. And we can bring that deep love of God that we have into ourselves. Charlie, thank you for that beautiful message.
Thanks again, Kim. Lovely.